You know the feeling of being genuinely glad to see someone and not bothering to hide it. Your face does the thing before you can stop it, and they catch it, and something in them settles. Being met like that, openly and unguarded, is rarer than it should be. That's the part of you the old sky maps called Leo. The willingness to be seen as you are, warmth and all, without first turning it into a performance. It's the part that lifts a quiet room just by being glad to be in it. It shows up in small ways more than big ones. You say the warm thing out loud when everyone else is only thinking it. When you're genuinely delighted by someone, they can feel it. And most people don't get felt like that nearly often enough. It's a quiet kind of warmth mostly, just unhidden. And that turns out to be rarer to be around than it sounds. When the sun moves into Leo, that part comes forward for a few weeks. The pull is outward and warm, toward expression, toward being seen. It's the season for letting whatever you usually keep turned down get turned up a little, out where other people can feel it. And here's what's unusual about the season. Being seen isn't something you have to earn in it. Most of the year runs on the opposite rule. Prove you're worth the attention first, and maybe you'll get some. Leo just lets you be visible, as you already are. And the warmth you're forever handing to everyone else gets, for a little while, to come back the other way. A season doesn't begin from nothing. You arrive into it already carrying whatever the year has been doing underneath everything. And there's been a lot of it. Saturn and Neptune are both in Aries. Saturn keeps pressing the question of who you're actually turning into. Neptune keeps softening the old picture of yourself until it loosens, making room for a newer one to form. Between them, the ground can feel like it's shifted an inch from where you'd planted your feet. Uranus is in Gemini now too, a long, slow change in how the mind goes looking. A restlessness that keeps reaching for a better question, because the old answers stopped feeling big enough. And Chiron is in Taurus, close to the quietest question any of us carries. Whether you're enough as you are, before you've earned a thing. You don't have to follow any of it, but add it all together, and that's the weather you've been living under all year. Month after month of being asked who you are, and whether you're enough as you are. Leo doesn't answer any of that. It lets you be seen in the middle of it, question marks and all. So for a few weeks, you can stop bracing. You can let the warmth in while the answers stay unfinished. The season opens in full light. The sun moves into Leo at the height of summer, when the evenings run long and the warmth is simply fully here. And at almost the same moment, something lifts. For the past few weeks, the planet of communication has been moving backward, and the mind with it. Old conversations circling round, words you'd said or hadn't, replaying in your head. Now it slows and turns forward. The words come back. The momentum returns. It can feel like a morning where things just start moving again, and you with them, after weeks where everything seemed to need a second look. So the season arrives clear and warm, ready in a way the weeks just behind it weren't. After a year that's asked so much of you, there's something almost startling about a season that just turns the warmth up and lets you stand in it. It's the part of you that had gone quiet for a while, allowed back out into the open. And if there's something you've been holding back, a word you haven't said, or a thing you haven't started, now it comes more easily than it has in a while. The fullest moon of the season rises opposite the Leo sun over in Aquarius, the sign of the wider circle, the part of life that belongs to something larger than itself. A full moon sits across the sky from the sun, so this one holds two things in a single frame. The warm, singular you that Leo lights up, and the wider company you're part of. Under a full Leo season sun, you may find you don't only feel your own warmth, you notice where it's been landing, who's been gathered around it, the faces that show up when you let yourself be glad. It's the difference between performing for a room and noticing the room is full of people who'd have stayed anyway. You catch someone's eye across a table for a second, and feel how much of the warmth there is shared, how little of it you actually had to carry alone. There can be a quiet relief in that. Being radiant on your own gets lonely after a while, even when no one would guess it from the outside. The warmth was always meant to reach someone, and around now, you often get to feel it doing exactly that. It's a good time to let the people in, to notice who's actually there, and to let someone be warm toward you for a change, even if that's the harder thing. Underneath the bright days runs a slower turn, and it's less about any single moment than about a direction. Around now, the lunar nodes move on to this very axis, the one running between Leo and Aquarius. They're the points the old astronomers used to track the direction of a life. It's the start of something long, well over a year, and there's a quiet pull inside it to let some of the warmth point outward, away from being the one who's seen, toward seeing others, toward being one warm light among several, rather than the only one. For someone used to lighting the room, that can sound like a loss. Lived from the inside, it tends to feel more like relief. The ease of not having to be the center of everything, of getting to belong to the circle instead of carrying it. And near the far edge of the season, a solar eclipse falls, the first of several across the months ahead. An eclipse has a way of briefly darkening the very thing it lands on, then handing it back, a little changed. Falling where it does, it can feel like something at the very center, quietly turning over and resetting. The pull of these weeks, if there is one, is gentle. To let the warmth go outward rather than hold it back. To be one of the circle rather than its center. If a lot of how you're built is Leo, these weeks speak to you more directly than to most. You might be the one who warms a room just by walking in, the one who makes other people feel a little brighter, who the room turns to when the energy flags. Not because the season has singled you out for anything, but because the thing it eases is something you've run on for years without noticing. The quiet sense that you have to keep being the warm one, or you'll stop being wanted. There's one piece of this that lands harder on you than on most. Being warm is the easy bit. You've done it your whole life. The hard bit is trusting it still counts when you're not performing it, when you've got nothing to give the room and you're just there, as you are. Some part of you has always half wondered whether people stay for the warmth or for the show. The answer, gently, is that it was never the show. So if there's one thing to carry out of these weeks, let it be that. Not to shine harder, just to let the warmth be what it already is. Real and enough. On your quiet days, as much as your bright ones. Your warmth was always meant to be shared, not performed. You don't have to be the center of the room to matter in it. You can let it reach people and land where it lands, and lose nothing of what makes you, you. May this season offer warmth, the ease of being yourself off the clock, and the quiet sense that you belong in the room for being you, not for keeping it lit.